Anime has been known for many things over the past few years. Often criticized for the depiction of black characters, nothing in the anime community is more controversial than the discussion of sexualization of characters. Since the birth of anime in the Western community, there has been arguments over the appearance of female characters and minors in anime and manga, discussing the dangerously high percentage of pedophilia in Japan, and how the depicted characters could at certain times be considered borderline child. Today I want to discuss these arguments and share my thoughts as to the sexualization of characters in anime. I don't want to broach on the whole lock-on issue at length, so this video will mainly be focused on characters over the age of 18. Nonetheless, I'm just going to make it extremely clear in the intro, I believe lock-on content should be considered a crime, and creating and possessing said content should have a jail sentence when said content includes depictions of pornography of a child with the intent of the character being under the age of 18. Now we've got that out of the way, let's discuss. But before we do so, I just wanted to say, hi! I'm HarleyTBS. I'm on my way to 12,000 subscribers now, and I'm aiming for 25,000 subscribers by 2022. So, if you aren't currently subscribed, I'd appreciate if you could go press that button below. I also have a Twitter, so shameless plug, but please follow me there too. And now we've got that out of the way, let's get right into the video. Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out is a manga and newly adapted anime about a girl who wants to be friends with a guy and follows him around as they have fun. It's a fan service filled show and a story about a shorter girl with assets, I guess? This show is a light-hearted comedy show about college students, Uzaki-chan herself being 20. Surely there could be no issue with a show about a 20-year-old, right? Well, Twitter didn't agree, and instead Uzaki-chan was torn apart, labelled an unrealistic representation of women, and people attempted to fix Uzaki-chan to be normal, ignoring the fact that short girls with large breasts do in fact exist, calling this show pedobait, when the character is clearly an adult, and surely a large-breasted character is the opposite of what a pedo would be looking for, right? It's clear that Uzaki-chan was sexualized. Yes, obviously, it's a huge trend in Japanese media, and it was obviously done intentionally. This show is filled with innuendos, and she literally wears a shirt with a breast joke on it. This backlash, however, made no sense. It was made out to be almost predatory, and Uzaki-chan was called not normal, literally invalidating people with Uzaki-chan's body type. Personally, I think this situation was stupid. I bought the manga for Uzaki-chan to look into this when the show was first airing, to see if there really was an issue, and in my opinion, there was not. This show is not pedobait, and I genuinely don't believe there's a huge issue with Uzaki-chan's design, but I think the Hopeless Peaches video on that topic covers the situation in depth enough that it should explain what I mean, so I'd recommend watching that video. So now, let's discuss My Hero Academia. Okay, now you've all disliked and spat your drink at the screen, let me explain. My Hero Academia is a show focusing on high school characters between the ages of 16 and 17. They all have superpowers, and stereotypical shonen protagonist does protagonist things and becomes the best. Obviously, as you've probably guessed, I want to talk about the sexualization in the show, because I do actually believe there's points to highlight with this show, though I feel it's not as big of an issue as many people are making it out to be, except in one case. I feel that My Hero Academia is a huge show, which represents a large proportion of anime, and because of that, the flaws within it can be used as good examples for issues with a lot of anime content. Since My Hero Academia started airing, the show has been accused of misogyny, due to the apparent sexualization of characters between the manga and anime, which often gets disproved with evidence that shows that it's simply shadows, making it look like the character is being sexualized more, and the main example I tend to see is here, where it seems the character has had their waist thinned and breasts enlarged, and to be honest, I don't see this to be a big issue. Making a character in a show obviously focused towards teenagers, more appealing towards teenagers, easier to animate, and a bit more sexy doesn't seem like a huge issue. It's all up to opinion, however, I don't think it's the worst of the anime community, and I don't have any actual issue with this, because the characters are rarely actually sexualized in My Hero Academia, and the show clearly isn't some sort of porn show. There's not a lot of fan service, etc. And the show is obviously not trying to share porn of kids, it's clear that's not the intention or focus, and making a character more visually appealing is not a problem. Those characters are simply more marketable if they're more appealing, and it allows the animators to rely on a simpler body shape across multiple characters. I believe this change gets represented in a lot of anime. However, I do actually have an issue with My Hero Academia. It's my personal opinion, so you don't have to agree with me. However, I find the way this show represents Momo to be pretty gross, sexual, and indecent. Momo is a 16-year-old character, and her outfit relies on a lot of visual cleavage, apparently for her quirk, and she can create anything and often pulls her creations from her cleavage. It's genuinely pretty weird and uncomfortable, and the show does sexualize Momo in several scenes. Not as extreme as other shows, though I do find it weird. I also understand though that for shows made for an audience the same age as the characters, it's no surprise that those characters would be made more appealing for the audience. I mean, you never hear people talking about how a bunch of kids had a gangbang in it. Oh. Well, maybe you do. Sorry about that. The point I'm trying to make is that I find My Hero Academia to have some abnormal sexualization at points, though I don't believe this sexualization is too extreme, graphic, or problematic that it genuinely needs to be changed or removed from the show. It's not porn and it's definitely not pedo bait. The characters have quite mature designs and I don't believe they're played for pedo bait. I believe the characters are in school simply for the premise of a high school action story. There's just one more thing I want to address before I get onto the next topic though, and that's the claim that shows like My Hero Academia set unrealistic standards for women, which first ignores how men are represented in the same series with six-packs and insane muscles, but the argument itself is extremely stupid. I do not believe there is an issue with unrealistic standards in anime, because I mean, seriously? Are people really comparing their figure to fucking lines on a screen now? Like, genuinely, are people really comparing their figure with 2D characters and becoming insecure that drawings look different to them? I hate to state the obvious, but a drawing is not real. Like, I don't know, you can't just look like a drawing. I mean, look at the difference between my sprites and the real me. I'm never gonna look like my sprites. It's like, it's not possible. It's a design, it's made in a style. It's not made to be accurate to real people, and it doesn't have to be accurate. However, there's another show set to come out, I believe, this year. An anime and manga called Don't Toy With Me, Nagatoro-san, a story about a sexual and romantic relationship between a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old according to their canon ages, though it should be a bigger age gap looking at the fact that one's freshman and senior. This manga is drawn by a doujinshi, or for those who don't know what doujinshi means, hentai book artist, and Nagatoro's design relies heavily on the lolly character design, to the point where it genuinely does feel like bait. This show also has many sexual and indecent scenes between these underage characters, and I hold actual issue with that. I believe Nagatoro-san's depiction of these characters is wrong and is clearly a difference in culture between countries. I don't think this show is intended to be porn, though it does push the bar, and with young characters and the way that the show just randomly puts them in sexual outfits, sexual positions, or sexual engagements purely for the sake of sexual tension, I could completely understand and agree with the issue with this show. And I'm genuinely curious to see how the general public reacts to this series, and so I decided to pick up some of the manga, and I'll probably save more about Nagatoro-san for its own separate video where I discuss the issues with the show and the backlash, because this show really is it's a bit much. So now I'm genuinely curious as to hear Calamara's thoughts. So I'll let her speak her mind on the issue, which will probably be starkly different to my thoughts based on our separate cultures. I'm genuinely curious to hear her input. So let's go to that now, and make sure you subscribe to them with the link below.
Hello everyone, this is Calamara here. Harley has generously offered this segment for me to fill, so naturally I said yes. I want to thank him for this opportunity, and I think the topic he's chosen today is definitely something that doesn't get talked about enough. The sexualization of anime characters. It's not really something you'd think of, is it? If you're as into anime and manga as I am, it's probably not anything unusual. That's just how anime is, you could say. It's simply a part of the genre, and that's simply how it's always been. However, when you take a step back and truly ask yourself, why is it a normal component of anime and manga? Why is it so normalized? Well, you might find that the answer is a lot darker than you think. And what is the answer, you might ask? It isn't simply artistic freedom, it's the culture and societal norms in Japan. Now, I would like to preface this by saying that I myself am an Asian, Southeast Asian to be exact. So while I do understand some of the cultural nuances involved in this, there are also certain aspects that I personally don't. I think it's important to remember that most countries in Asia hold a very conservative and traditionalist view. We aren't as open or accepting about the expression of one's sexuality, in which the discussion or depiction of sexual acts and relations outside of marriage are often stigmatized and therefore kept secret. It's something you whisper about in private with your close friends and something you would hide with the best of your abilities from your parents. You might say it's suppressive and shames people for something that is a normal part of life, and you would be right. Unfortunately, that's just how it is here, and with our conservative and traditionalist perspective, it's inevitable as well. In part, it may be related to culture or tradition, and I can't really speak for all of Asia considering there are so many different countries and cultures, all with different perspectives, but you could say that they don't have to conform to the Western ideals of feminism and female empowerment if they don't want to. We find feminism and empowerment in our own ways here, and for the most part, it's not really the biggest issue for us either. Really, we're more worried about things like access to good healthcare and education. However, it becomes a problem when the marginalized demographic themselves perceive it as a problem, and this is certainly the case for Japan. An article published in 2017 by Anne-Marie Luck speaks about Japan's Madonna complex, where women are forced to live up to conflicting and extreme sexual stereotypes. The article states, on the one hand, their sexuality is exploited for commercial gains. Men openly frequent hostess bars, police turn a blind eye to soap lands, or bathhouses offering sexual services, and erotic manga showing buxom yet childlike women posing suggestively is displayed on every convenience store. A recent BBC documentary revealed that, on the other hand, when pop idols or TV talento and artists like Megumi Igarashi, an artist who was sent to trial for creating 3D printed sculptures, including a full-sized kayak in the shape of her vagina, and then selling the 3D data to fund her art project, attempt to own their sexuality even in the smallest ways, they are publicly shamed and often silenced. As long as something serves the male Makoto gaze, it's condoned, said Natsu Kawasaki from Tomorrow Girls Troupe, an artist collective that fights against gender inequality. The group endures a constant backlash, so it operates anonymously, wearing pink rabbit masks that are symbolic of how women in Japan identify with the rabbit in Japanese mythology, smart but powerless. The article continues on with more quotes from Kawasaki, stating, "We received huge criticism from the otaku culture, who said we were infringing on their freedom of expression. The sexualization of young girls is so normalized that they completely miss the point. Herein lies a crucial issue. People in positions of authority are steeped in sexism. Teachers and even parents are dismissive of sexual exploitation to the point where massive problems, such as the groping of girls on trains, are swept under the rug. As a result, girls grow up learning not to speak out, because when they do, they are criticized. In Igarashi's case," she continued, "she is simply using her body in the way she wants to, yet she is censored and labeled a self-proclaimed artist. But when a male artist such as Aida Makoto does the same thing with female bodies, his work is put in museums and he is called a genius." Which is such blatant hypocrisy considering penis festivals are completely acceptable in modern Japan, and also revisionist when you consider that some of the most extraordinarily graphic, fantastic vagina art you will ever see forms an important part of the erotic artworks of the Edo period. Of course, it's entirely possible that being someone who is not from the culture, I'm missing a huge chunk of context, so I can't claim that any of this is true for certain or if this is as big an issue as the article claims it to be. However, from what I've read, it seems as though there's a major power gap between men and women, and the way anime characters are designed, with the men often being unremarkable and bland while the women are often more glamorous and risque, is meant to pander to this societal norm and, more importantly, to sell merchandise. Men are often more likely to purchase and collect figurines, manga series, and other similar things, as they are often the ones who have a bigger disposable income, and because of this, the more a character panders to their preferences, regardless of how twisted or messed up it might be, studios will still cater to them because that's the way they keep their business going. It's opportunistic and morally reprehensible, but If it prints money, then it prints money, I guess. And this is my own personal opinion and somewhat of a hot take, but I genuinely think that the fan service in anime is the very thing that holds it back from reaching a wider audience. Animes and mangas have really good storyline, but because of the stigma developed around these fan servicey sexualized characters, people are more likely to put it off or not give it a chance. Which is really sad because the very thing that is keeping them alive in Japan is also the very thing that's keeping them from being taken seriously by a wider audience. However, just as anime and manga is the clearest example of this pandering, the article also cites it as the solution to changing the consumer base's perspectives. Artist Keiko Takemiya has been using manga to break taboo since the 1970s, when she became one of the first women to controversially create shoujo. She told Index on Censorship magazine, "By using the main protagonist in manga to show how women can express their strengths, readers can relate to the character and take what they've learned into the real world." So perhaps the solution to the sexualization of anime characters, particularly underage anime characters, isn't to attack or silence the current norm, but to offer an alternative that would promote a better message. Maybe even use it to open the viewer's eyes to the horrors of such realities. After all, if something is good, then it will be more likely to sell, and if it sells, others might follow in its footsteps and push the message forward. But that's enough for me. I'll hand you back to Harley now.
So now I'll pose the question to myself and you, the viewer. Is sexualization in anime an issue? Do you believe that the sexualization of anime characters is a problem? Or, to be more clear, when do you think it becomes a problem? When said characters are underage? Because that's where I draw the line. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you have, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'd like to make more videos like this one, potentially even one about the racist portrayals of characters in anime and manga, in which I'd probably reach out to my content creator friend Thuman in hopes that they'd be happy to discuss their thoughts too, as I only recently looked into it because of their tweets about the Promised Neverland manga, which is actually really worth looking into. So if you want to look at the racist debate over the character designs in that show, go read Thuman's tweets. And without further ado, I'll see you next time. Peace.
Said she wanna rock with a like me. I'm a stylish guy. Spend a little guap with a like me. We can catch a fly. Said she wanna rock with a